Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Healing Overflow. I'm Dr. Toy. Listen, I'm a little serious today because, I was watching the news and I was just really taking in all of the things that are going on, in my community here in Pittsburgh and just around the world. And I thought, I got to talk to y'all for a second about trauma. So that's what this is going to be, just a little tutorial, a little throw out there just to kind of get that trauma foundation so that we could understand, as human beings and as a community, like what are we feeling and what is that I'm feeling in my body and in my mind. Real quick, we'll take care of business. Like my Facebook page, please, Healing Overflow. Email me any questions, any thoughts at drtoyjones@gmail.com, and follow me on Twitter, Prof. Toya Jones, also like our WXCN radio page. So I had to get that business out, before I really just sit and talk to you. So pull up a chair, come, and I'm literally at my kitchen table. Y'all come on, pull up a chair to my kitchen table and let's talk about what is trauma and how to heal from the impact on your mind, body, and your spirit. Yes, trauma is a real thing, y'all. It's not just in your head and, oh, shake it off, or what's the matter with you? You need to get over that. No, that's not what trauma is. Trauma is like digging burrows into your body and you literally feel it. Here in Pittsburgh, just some tragedy hit us. A young man by the name of Marquise Campbell was killed in front of his school. It's just a 15-year-old kid. And just situations like this happen all over, a Black boy. And it hit me, that's my son's age. And that really, I felt that in my body, y'all. And I felt it in my chest and I felt it in my arms, and I stiffened up, and in my stomach even, got queasy. Just hearing about the death of young people, it's not right. And something registers in our head. No, we're supposed to go before them. What is our teenagers doing dying in the street? And I thought, well, you know what? I'm a trauma therapist. I'm a trauma expert. If I'm feeling these symptoms in my body, this is happening to my people out there. This is happening to my viewers. This is happening to y'all. And so I feel like, I gotta really talk about this and share this. And so this is what this whole broadcast is about. So I just want to say, I also read this article in USA Today, and it just really matched up with a lot of my thoughts over the last couple of days. It's called Trauma Isn't Just Psychological. It can impact your body too. So that was USA Today, and I'll provide the link in a little bit, but it'll also be on my Healing Overflow Facebook page. So there you go. There's the link if you want to read it, or just go on Healing Overflow Facebook page, like I said, and go ahead and read that. But a lot of things that they talked about, I see as just being in the trauma field for over 20 years now, just working with survivors of trauma. And there's just so many things that I wanted to add to that's not in the article. So I want you to know that there's always a precipitating event. What does that mean? That's kind of therapy talk, but what does that mean? That means a messed up thing happens to a person just minding their own business, nothing that they did wrong most of the time. And something jacked up happens, right? And it's called a traumatic event. So this event or a series of events has to happen in order for a person to be traumatized. Now, you all heard about PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. A lot of times it's paired up with our vets, and they say, that's what veterans get. Well, you know what? Our communities are sometimes war zones, y'all, and we get PTSD, and we don't all the time have PTSD, but we get trauma symptoms. So just because you have trauma symptoms, and I'm going to share with you also what these trauma symptoms are, just because you say, oh, shoot, Dr. Toy, I got some of these trauma symptoms, doesn't mean you have PTSD. And even if you do have PTSD, it's nothing for you to be afraid of, because guess what? You can be healed from this. There is generations and generations of trauma that have happened to us, and especially happened to our people. And it's time for us to say, you know what? It's healing time. Okay. We don't have to keep carrying this on time after time, generation after generation, and passing it down to our children so that they have this, generational trauma. That's not what we're going to do. Okay, so let me just explain a little bit about trauma. So you got that. There's a precipitating event, right? That's how I talk to my class. So y'all my class right now. There's a precipitating event. There's a traumatic event that happens. Then my brain takes in all of that information about what happened to me through my five senses. Remember, your smell, your eyesight, your taste, and okay, right? Now all of this information is being laid down in my brain. Okay. While this is happening, we have different parts of the limbic system. So the limbic system is just like the emotional control center of the brain. It's part of the brain that determines how we feel about an experience and how we're going to react. And so there are different structures within the limbic system. So you have the amygdala and the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. Okay, so these are just terms, and I kind of like learning about the brain, so I just figured you would like to learn about it too, right? But the amygdala is like an alarm. It's a smoke detector. It sounds the alarm, and the brainstem, which is our reptilian part of our brain, is the oldest part of the brain, sends a signal to the amygdala. So I like to call the brainstem like the Secret Service. And it's like, oh, shoot, we got a problem. Uh-oh, there's a problem over there. It sends a signal to the amygdala. And I always call amygdala Amy, and she's like taking down notes. And she's like, oh, snap, there's some stuff going down. So she sends out the alarm to the rest of the brain. And what happens is our brain then begins to store the memory in the hippocampus. But trauma brain it's sporadic. It's not linear memory. So picture a puzzle that's 1,000 pieces or something, and you drop it on the ground, and you're like, oh, shoot, I don't know where the puzzle pieces go. That's trauma memory. So a lot of times survivors of trauma will have memory that pops up out of nowhere, and it's triggered. We call them triggers in trauma. Anything can trigger. And y'all heard from our guest last week, Valerie Dixon, talk about oatmeal. Going down an oatmeal aisle was a trigger for her. Any sight, taste, smell, anything like that can be a trigger. And so all this information is being communicated in the brain. And the hypothalamus, which is that emotional part of the brain, says, this is how we're going to react. The brain says we're going to fight, flight, or freeze. Here's the thing about the brain. The brain says the prefrontal lobe or the neocortex, we're going to shut that down. So I call that the executive director of your brain. It shuts down. It's limited in its ability to function. And so all of those executive decisions, like what should I do next? If you've ever experienced a trauma and people say, why didn't you scream, girl? Why'd you fight? I would have did this. I would have said, well, I don't know why you... And you get all of this criticism, and hindsight is 2020. Let me tell you, it's because your brain said, that prefrontal lobe said, no, thanks. I'm going to check out of here. And you literally couldn't make those executive decisions about what to do. All that reasoning and the next steps and all that kind of stuff, that was gone. And that's not your fault. And so I explain this so much to my sex assault survivors and my physical assault survivors in particular. You didn't have a choice. You were on automatic pilot. So this whole system and all this stuff is happening in your brain, but it's automatic. It really is like you're not thinking about it. Just like we don't think about breathing and blinking, it's part of the autonomic nervous system. And so you are automatically going into fight, flight, or freeze. So what are those symptoms look like? Well, fight, flight, and freeze can look like all sorts of things. Like flight can mean, you're shaking, your heart's racing, your legs going up and down, literally getting up and moving and running when people try to talk about the incident. And there's so many more. And I'll share that on my Facebook page, the Healing Overflow Facebook page, about the symptoms of trauma. Okay. And then you have like the fight. Well, that, we got our young people in school banging like Bloods and Crips, y'all, like banging just anything you say. You scuff my shoe. You looked at me wrong. I work with the incarcerated population as well. And they get into all kinds of fights because that person actually looked like the abuser. And so they jumped on them because that part of the brain said, that ain't going to ever happen again to you. You're going to defend yourself, right? And then the freeze response is a lot what I see in my sex assault survivors, where I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I didn't do nothing. I shut down, and my body literally felt like it was stiff as a board. And what that shows up as in, in real life can be that I am isolating myself. I am not talking to others. I am very flat in my emotions. Okay. And there's a whole lot more symptoms. So check out the page and see from there. And what happens is this starts to then manifest in your body, because this is adrenaline and cortisol and all these stress hormones happen in your body. And your body's like, what do I do with all of this stuff? Guess what? It don't go away. It doesn't just like leave on its own. Like, okay, I had enough time, space in their body. I'm just going to walk out now. It has to go somewhere. And so sometimes it can manifest itself in your body, and that can look like, oh, all kind of stuff. Now I got digestive issues. Now I can't, go to the bathroom. I keep going, or I want to throw up, or, feel nauseous. I have headaches. I can't get out of bed because my body is hurting. I remember having clients like homicide survivors and sex assault survivors that their bodies were aching because that stress hormone builds up in your muscles and you are clenching down like this most of the time and most of the day. And so what do? You got to have a release that has to get out of your body. Now, there are several studies that talk about, trauma-informed yoga and dance, movement, interplay. All these things are wonderful. And you got to find your way of getting those chemicals or those hormones out of your body. You got to find your way. I've had clients say, I run, I walk. I got some clients like, I ain't going nowhere. I ain't doing nothing. I ain't moving, but you got to have some kind of movement, because it really is not just all in your head, y'all. It's all in your body too. We call that in therapy somatic symptoms. And so a lot of times my clients will talk about having body aches and pains. My kid clients will talk about, their parents are taking them to the doctors and they can't find anything. They can't diagnose them with anything. But they know, I'm not making this up. It's in my body. I feel this pain, or I feel this nausea and this discomfort. And so what I would like to say is trauma can be healed. That can be healed. I remember in particular, I had a little girl that had these digestive problems, and I actually used art to work with her in therapy. And what happened is she drew, that her stomach was just all full of all these emotions. So her doctor, her mother took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, you don't have anything. I can't find anything. I ran all these tests. Once we were able to really look at the picture that she drew, we could see that all of her sex assault trauma was in her tummy. And that's why she had digestive problems and nausea. So from that point, we were able to treat the trauma. And guess what? The somatic symptoms, or the body symptoms, decreased and went away. That trauma can be healed, y'all. And that's why I do these videos, these podcasts, because I need to just get this word out that you don't have to suffer. You don't deserve that. You didn't deserve what happened to you. And so trauma needs to be healed in your body today, moving forward. And as you continue to heal, guess what? It trickles and drips on everybody around you. So I just want to encourage you that, yoga, art, movement, talk therapy, all those things combined is actually statistically and ethically sound, and it works in combination. So some people say, oh, talk therapy alone isn't enough. I agree. I mean, I'm certified in EMDR. I'm a CBTer, and I teach CBT college level. I teach trauma college level, all these things. There are so many different methods that we use as therapists in our therapy offices. And so we use art, writing, movement, yoga, all those things. So I just want to, leave you with that. And I want you to know that this can be healed. These things that are in your body need released, and you can be free. So understand that, those traumas, the familiar traumas, all of these things, they can stop with you, and they don't have to continue on to your children. There are a couple quotes from the article that I want to leave you with as well, and I think it's really important. One quote, it says, for a lot of folks who are and who have been experienced of interrelational trauma, familiar trauma, it benefits them to read their surroundings, to notice mood shifts in a parent, a caregiver, a boss, whoever. So those act as traumas, triggers to your traumas. And so what therapy does, or what trauma coaching, or any intervention that you decide to use, what that does is it softens the environment and makes your environment safe, where you can actually process and regulate your emotions. What does that mean, Dr. Toy? It helps you get back to being comfortable in your own skin, identifying your triggers and regulating them through various trauma specific techniques. You can learn those techniques through a trauma trained therapist, through reading, through videos, all these sort of things. And there are so many different outlets that you can use instead of dissociating and escaping your body, which a lot of people do to cope with the terror and discomfort that trauma brings. So whatever method you decide to use, it's okay to get professional help. It's okay to reach out to, someone that knows what they're talking about, and they know trauma, and they have years of experience, and they know how to work with you to release some of that. Some of these videos can even be a tool, but it's not a replacement for therapy and for a professional licensed clinician. So remember that, and remember, keep healing and let it overflow to everybody around you. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all watching, and take good care of yourselves.